Thursday Night Tailgate, where the spotlight is always on the positive. Tune in Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time to hear your favorite NFL legends, players, and coaches sharing their stories. Now back to Chris and Bob.
I wouldn't joke about anything else that happens here tonight.
Now joining us here on Thursday Night Tailgate is former Pitt and Cincinnati Bengals linebacker Ricardo McDonald. Let me give you some background on Ricardo. He is from Kingston, Jamaica, grew up in Patterson, New Jersey. He played his college ball at Pitt. He was a fourth-round draft pick by the Cincinnati Bengals in 1992, and he played in the NFL from 92 to 2001 for the Bengals, Bears, and Broncos. He was named to the 1992 All-Rookie team. His twin brother, Levon, who's been a wonderful guest here on the show, played on the last Notre Dame team to win the national championship back in 1988, and he played in the NFL for the Colts. And twins have played a huge part in the McDonald family, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. But we're excited to have Ricardo with us tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Ricardo, Chris, and Bob here. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome to the show. Welcome. Hello, Chris and Bob. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure.
So, Ricardo, before we get into all the football stuff, and like I mentioned a moment ago, twins are a big part of the McDonald family. Obviously, you and your brother are twins. You have twin children, and I believe Devon's mother-in-law is also part of a twin. She's got a twin sister. So it's got to be unbelievable at the family reunion trying to keep everybody straight.
No, it is. In actuality, the year that my twins were actually born, there was actually two sets of twins that was actually born in my family. That there's more twins born naturally in Jamaica and Africa than anywhere else in the world. And so there's a product in Jamaica, evidently, it's called yam. Not the yam that's in the U.S., but it's a product that's raised that's grown in the ground. And I guess that this product is, and you Google it, you're welcome to Google it, and you Google yam and twins, and I guess this product, also is produced in Africa too. And when you Google it, the information is quite enlightening about how this product be able to help produce twins from this product itself.
Wow! All right, have to look that up after the show. and Ricardo, I read growing up you were a big cricket player. So who got you to put the cricket bat down and start playing American football?
That's a very good question. So my whole life, growing up in the islands, you ought to do three things now. So I grew up either running track. There's a big cricket guy named Michael Holden. And I also grew up playing soccer. I wanted to be Pele. So, upon embarking into the United States, I saw my cousins, on the streets of Patterson run around and they're catching this ball and they're calling it football. And I'm like, guys, how on earth is this football? And you guys are catching it with a hand. So I was arguing with my cousin. I'm like, this is handball. And they're like, no, this is football. And he's like, no, this is football. I'm like, no, this is handball. And so anyway, my twin brother went out. We were about 13 years old and my twin brother went out the first day of football. And about a week and a half later, I guess the coach saw me walking in the hallway and he said, oh, you got a twin brother. And so anyway, the coach invited me to come to practice and I went out and so I'm sitting down at practice and I'm watching these guys hitting each other and they get back up and they would do this rah-rah speech and I'm like, this has to be the craziest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And you guys call this fun? And so I looked at my twin brother and I said, the whole time during practice, I'm like, you've been doing this for a week now and you like this? And he's like, oh my gosh, this is like the best thing ever. And so towards the end of practice, coach looked at me and he's like, well, what do you think? And I was like, coach, I have no idea what I'm doing out here. I see these guys, they've been hitting each other all day. This crazy ball is in the air. These guys are catching it. And I had no idea. He said, well, why don't we maybe put some pads on you? We're about to do this last drill called Bull in the Ring. And I was like, sure. So towards the end of practice, the coach was like, well, we're doing this thing called Bull in the Ring. And the low man wins. So I'm watching these guys, these yelling out Johnson Smith. And these guys are like hitting each other like two rams. Like, running towards each other. Anyway, so towards this drill is going on for about maybe 10, 15 minutes, and he yells out R. McDonald, which is Ricardo McDonald, and this guy named Blood. And this kid hit me so hard in my sternum. It was the first near-death experience I ever had in my entire life. So I'm on the ground flopping around like a fish. And I feel like I'm about to die. And the coach walked over to me and he said, well, son, you just got the wind knocked out of you. He said, well, I said, Coach, I want to thank you so much for this opportunity, but I will never, ever play this game ever again. And I took my pads off and walked off the football field. My twin brother looked at me and he said, Devon, he said, Ricardo, you can't quit. And I'm like, look, I went back and I joined the soccer team the next day. And about a week later, the coach came to my house and they had that big event, and my mom, the dad, the coach, and everybody. And the coach walked in and he said something to me. He said, if you allow me to teach you this game of football, American football, it'll take you farther in life that your mom and dad will never have to pay for you to go to college. And I believe that this game could take you very far in life. And so I started learning how to tackle, like literally from my knees. And the gentleman was the guy by the name of this thing called Lou Mathis. And so one of the things that I channeled even today in one of my foundations is I talk to a lot of parents about believing in a kid, even though a lot of kids don't even have a belief in themselves. And so for the 10 seconds until I got knocked out, this coach saw something in me. And he believed in me even though I didn't believe in myself. And that says a lot about a lot of parents not giving up on a kid. Because this coach could have easily said, hey, I got about 75 other guys on the team. This is another kid who don't know the game of football. I'm just going to move on. But he took the time to teach me the game of football. And I thank him for it.
So from there, Ricardo, and I'm from Pittsburgh, so I couldn't be more thrilled that you played at Pitt. Talk about the schools that recruited you and why you chose to go play at Pitt.
It's a good question. So we came out, so I visited University of Miami. My twin brother at the same weekend visited, I think he visited Illinois that weekend. The weekend I went to go visit Miami. Miami back then was the Alabama, so there was 25 guys that came on official visits. There was another 10 guys that came on unofficial visits. There was 4 guys from New Jersey that actually went down with me. By the time we boarded that flight that Sunday, Jimmy Johnson was actually still the head coach at University of Miami. All 4 of those guys had committed to UM. And so they asked me what was I going to do. I said, well, I still got a visit set up to Syracuse, and I still got a visit set up to University of Pittsburgh. And so my twin brother, I came back that Sunday. My twin brother came back. He went out to Notre Dame the next week, and I went to Syracuse the following week. And we both came back home, and he said, well, I'm going to go to Notre Dame. And he said, well, what did you think about Syracuse? And I said, well, I don't think that's the place for me. Well, the next week he went to Penn State, and I went out to the University of Pittsburgh, and there was a guy by the name of Craig Arnett Hayward who took me on my visit. And
wow.
There was a head coach named Mike Godfrey who looked at me. And he said, now there's only 4 guys that ever started as true freshmen. Bill Fralick, Tony Dorsett, Dan Marino, and a guy named Hugh Green. And we think that you could be our next true freshman that ever started. And that's all I wanted to hear. And I said, Coach, if you call my mom and tell her that, I'll sign the letter of intent right now. He picked up the phone and called my house and told my mom that I had the opportunity to start against Ohio State Buckeyes the first week in 1989. And I signed with the Pitt Panthers.
Bob, questions for Ricardo? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. And so the
No,
one thing
finish your thought.
so the one thing that I never did, I never not believed in myself. And so even though I was 2 years out of high school, and I still didn't know the game of American football, the one thing that I had that kept ringing in my bell was getting that feeling of having me being knocked out 2 years earlier from that first Bull in the Ring. And so I channeled the panel in the fact that I was going to have to play with the most intensity. And that's what I brought to the game of football, was the intensity and the tenacity. To be able to that, if you were standing, I was literally trying to separate it from the head from the body.
Bob, questions for Ricardo?
Yeah, Ricardo, more about your relationship with Levon. Great guy. I mean, you guys just had so much success at such a young age. And we hear about the closeness of twins all the time. Was there a lot of competitiveness between the two of you as you continue to excel up the football ladder?
You know what? And that's the problem. You know, that was one of the things that, you know, and looking back at it, that I regret with my twin brother. You know, one of the things with twin boys is that they're highly competitive. I mean, me and Levon competed at everything in life, and twin boys are like that. They're very, very competitive. I mean, if my twin brother made the honor roll and I didn't talk to him for a couple of months, and vice versa. If Levon had 15 tackles and three sacks and 2 interceptions, I was mad. I wanted to outdo him, and that's how it always was. It was always a competitive nature. To see who could outdo who. And part of the problem that it created was we didn't know how that once we got off the football field that it was just a game. That even after the football game, that we still competed at just about everything in life. It was always about competition. To see who was the smartest. To see who was this, to see who was that. And it wasn't until we probably maybe got out the NFL that our bond and our relationship kind of grew in a much different way. And the love between us transcended in a different trajectory. And I think part of it too is that we grew from a spiritual standpoint in a direction in which our wives, our family, and it was more so cohesive unit, more so than the competitive nature that when we were a lot younger.
And Ricardo, taking you back to the 92 draft, I looked at some of the linebackers taken ahead of you. You had guys like Quentin Ricarod and Levon Kirkland, our good friend, but you were pretty high up there in linebackers. I wanted to get your expectations. What do you remember about that draft?
So going up to the draft, one of the things about the draft was that leading up to it, I was probably rated in a couple of the reports that I was like literally up to rated in the company Sports Illustrated. Even back then, I was like one of the top 3 linebackers. And for some odd reason, you know, I dropped. Part of it was the fact that I was pretty much a rush hand. And I think even back then, a lot of the linebackers that they were looking for, kind of like a Quentin Ricarod, who could drop into coverage. And I had played in a Hula Bowl with Levon Kirkland, out of Clemson. And Marvin Lewis, who had coached me at the University of Pittsburgh and went to the Steelers the year before. I kind of felt a little bit jaded by them not drafting me in the Steelers. And so even that, when I went to Cincinnati, I kind of had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, so to speak. And so I played with like a little bit of anger every time I played against the Steelers. You know, and the fact that, you know, yeah, I was a linebacker. You were a linebacker coach. I mean, you had me for 4 years, for 2 years, and you drafted a linebacker from out of Clemson. And part of the reason why I knew because they were looking for a different kind of a linebacker. They were looking for someone who was more versatile, dropping in the coverage. Where I was pretty much a rough guy that was pretty much trying to get after the quarterback.
Ricardo, one more before we let you go. We've got our next guest, Al Oliver, hanging on the line. We're going to get to Al in just a moment. But
sure.
When I looked over your Wikipedia page, it said that you suffered at least 20 concussions, and that one doctor said to you on one of them that your brain was 60% swollen. You played anyway, got another concussion on top of that. Talk about, everything now that we're learning about CTE and all of that sort of thing. Looking back at all of the concussions that you had, are you worried at all about what life could be like down the road?
Well, I've been diagnosed with what's called partial dementia. I also been diagnosed with hydrocephalus, which is basically excessive fluid in the brain. I've lost a lot of brain volume. There's a lot of my portion of my brain of atrophy as a result of the trauma that my brain has suffered. For the game of football, it's been very good. Do I have regrets about it? I think if I was 18 years old and I had the knowledge that I do today, I probably would not have went down this road, because I have a son right now who's 12 and I refuse to let him play. I have a son who's 18 years old who just got a scholarship to Nebraska and playing football, and I begged him not to, because of the simple fact that I begged him not to, because of the simple fact that I think that once you have information and you're able to have all the information and the resources, and you're able to have all the ill effect of what this information and how damaging it could cause, and especially when you have good friends. I got a good friend of mine right now that I used to play ball with, that has that's no longer here. Kevin Turner, out of Alabama, that died from ALS about two years ago. I've got some good friends of mine who have had dementia, who are dealing with the onset of dementia right now. And so I've seen the ill effect that 45-year-old men don't have dementia in the natural world. So when you look at the general population, things that show up maybe in the 70s or 80s in the general population show up a lot earlier in life in men who play very physical sport like the American football. And so, armed with that kind of information, I would never subject not even my worst enemy to that. And so I've swayed about my son's away from me.
Ricardo, before we let you go, how can our listeners stay up to date with what you're doing? Is there a way to follow you on social media?
Yeah. I'm on Instagram. That's Rico Max at Instagram.com.
Got it. Well, Ricardo, thank you so much for taking time out of your night, and we thank our good friend Randy Fuller for getting us connected. We hope you'll come back and join us again sometime. Sure. A lot more questions we'd like to get into, and unfortunately just didn't have enough time tonight, but we hope you'll do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Okay, likewise. Thank you so much.
Take care, Ricardo.
All right, take care, Ricardo.
You too now.
That is Ricardo McDonald, former Cincinnati Bengals linebacker and University of Pittsburgh linebacker as well. Bob, a lot of good stories, and there's a lot of great things between he and his twin brother Devon. But when you read his Wikipedia page and you hear or you read all about the concussions, boy, it sure is a scary thing.
Sure is, Chris. You had brought it up earlier, and we're just glad he could give us the time he did, and he sounds terrific. We just hope the best for him, and when he brought up Kevin Turner's name, we all knew about that.
Yeah.
He's close and dear to our show. So, again, we'll have more to talk to him in the future, I'm sure. It's a fascinating topic, and he has a fascinating life.